Welcome to the Living Centred podcast, a podcast all about learning together how to live lives which are centred on Jesus. Everyone lives centred on something. Our goal is to learn together how every area of our lives, everything about who we are and how we live, can be increasingly oriented around Jesus and transformed by Jesus. He invites us to a rich and satisfying life, where the good news that he truly is enough changes everything about how we relate to God, ourselves, and the world. In each episode, a different person shares about what it's looking like for them to seek to centre their life on Jesus right now. As we hear their stories, we get to learn together and to encourage one another in what it means for Jesus to be at the centre of our lives. This is a journey we are all invited to, and a conversation we all get to be a part of. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name is Adrian. It is so good to welcome you to this week's episode of the Living Centred podcast. And it is my privilege to welcome this week Dan, who will be sharing.
Hello.
Dan, it is very, very good to have you here. And I'm really excited about our conversation.
Likewise.
To ease you in then, as always with everyone, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your life looks like at this point in time?
Yes, of course. And thanks for having me. I love the idea of this podcast.
Good.
Such a good way to know other people in the church, as a newbie to Oasis as well.
Yeah.
So my name's Dan. I'm a Christian. I am not from your country. I am from Northern Ireland.
We love it.
I am engaged to Shona, who lives down in Bath.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I got engaged reasonably recently, hence the congratulations, I guess.
Indeed.
For context. But yeah, she's down in Bath, so only an hour and 45 minutes away, which is fantastic. I'm a physio in the army, and I am kind of posted in Birmingham. Here, not by my own choosing, but by God's grace.
Wow.
And I'm very excited to be here, to be settled into Oasis now as a newbie. And outside of that, I find myself mainly running about and staying active and all of that jazz.
It's so good, Dan. Just a really good window in to who you are. And I haven't said this for a while, actually, on the podcast. I have to be disciplined at this point in time because part of me wants to ask you a whole load of questions connected to some of the things that you've just shared.
And I can talk, so it's dangerous.
But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay disciplined and rather kind of jump straight in with the big question, which is within the wonder and beauty of how your life is mapped out at this point in time. Like, what does it look like to live centered on Jesus at this point in time?
Yeah, I think the first thing, which has been a consistent, I would say, probably for the last maybe 8 years of my life. I think about 8 years ago, I was sort of given the phrase discipline equals intimacy. And that's the first of many plagiarized quotes over the next few minutes. But
I don't mind that.
Good. No references, just plagiarism. But yeah, I find that whenever I'm disciplined to actually make space for God, quite often it doesn't really matter where or when or what form it takes.
Yeah.
Whenever I make space for God, he tends to turn up. And so the real battle tends to be having that discipline in that space.
Yeah.
And so that's one consistent thing, that whether it's in terms of my quiet time, whether it's in terms of time with other people or anything like that, whenever I make space for him, he turns up. James 4, where it talks about drawing near to God and him drawing near to us. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, I would say, like sport and activity. And this is one thing that, being a physio, I feel like I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't answer something along those lines. But staying on my feet and moving and playing sport, any form of thing like that, I just find A, really valuable, and B, such a good vehicle for spending time with God. And for quite a while, it was kind of almost a pressured thing of, how can I squeeze God into a run? And that quite often tended to be listening to a podcast or something.
Yeah.
But kind of the more that I've even sort of been working in the line of work I'm in, where people don't get a chance to often walk or run or be in the gym, and they're sort of, you're treating them in their hospital beds or whenever they're on crutches.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down to the simple just enjoyment of being able to actually move. It's something that just really helps me to enjoy God and remember him. And actually plagiarized quote too, but
that's cool.
I think it was Pete Gregg who talked about it and identified that Jesus spent a lot of time in the peace and quiet on mountaintops, but
Yeah.
it takes a while to walk to get up there. And
Yeah.
the main reason I like that is because it sort of just confirmed what I already kind of thought was true. Yeah, I meet God quite often in the doing and in the busy. I think staying centered at the moment for me looks like being patient as well in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And for someone who quite often likes to be on his feet and busy or achieving things,
Yeah.
to actually be at a stage that I'm not always seeing lots and lots of encouragement. And at times it's been a wee bit tricky, especially over the past year.
Wow.
Again, someone sort of had mentioned that sometimes the waiting and trusting in God
Yeah.
is actually, that's not an absent thing. It's not a passive thing, but you actively wait for God and trust in him, that his plans continue to be good,
Yeah.
that he hasn't let go, and that you'll see his goodness.
Yeah, that's really good, Dan. Straight off the bat, I just really love it. I think, and the variety of, it's discipline. But what I loved of you saying, but discipline's intimacy, which I'd not heard before, said quite like that. And then you expressing it of just saying, it's not about like the what, the where, the when. It's just knowing I turn up and God turns up. I just love that. That's it. It's like, I'm going to keep doing this because I know God's going to turn up.
Yeah, I forget it so often.
Yeah, it's really good. And I love, the sport activity. I was wondering where, I was like, well, how? Like, not as someone who isn't that sporty, I was thinking, well, how's that? And then just seeing it, just like, oh, wow, the thankfulness, the gratitude of just, I can keep moving. I'm able to do this. I'm surrounded by people who can't. And I can. And God, in this moving, I'm encountering you. Of just being grateful of like what you're doing and how I'm able to enjoy that. And Jesus, you too were always moving.
Yeah.
And then within it, that grounding of, and it's just being patient. It's just the waiting, which feels like so countercultural to what you've just said.
Yeah, I didn't realize how
it's like,
juxtaposing those things were until I said it.
It's just like, but God's in all of it. That's the beauty of our lives, that we can be like, this thing's true. Oh yeah, and this true.
Yeah.
And exactly at the same time. I guess then it does lead us to the next question of like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But what helps you then live that way?
I think the first thing is probably community. And so it's been just over a year now since I joined the army as a physio. And within that, I think a lot of it had been the thought of being a witness for God within that context.
Yeah.
And to be honest, probably part of my ego was a little bit like, okay, I'm going in here by myself to do God's will. And it's been ridiculously humbling and painful at times whenever it's felt quite lonely. But then whenever the community aspect comes into it, whether that be finding Oasis, whether that be finding, a couple of Christians within work, wherever that is, to be honest, the consistency of like some of my friends who like from over in Northern Ireland have continually just like said, I'm with you here. And also, like, to be honest, like just God's grace in terms of my fiance Shona being over here in this country as I've moved over here from Northern Ireland. It's just been one of those things where we like to be really independent as people, but to be honest, I just need other people to at least know. So I think the community and just people in that sense. One that's a little bit left field is being silly, which I just written silliness down on my piece of paper. And for a bit of context, I think choosing joy and choosing to offer up your dignity a tiny bit at times and choosing to laugh when things really aren't going well, or just to provoke childishness with colleagues and friends is something that has helped me really enjoy God a lot more recently. It's almost saying to the world in some ways, actually, these things aren't too serious. All this pressure or all of this sort of confusion or all of these logistics, like it doesn't really matter too much. And just choosing joy instead, which has been one thing I've found really almost infectious and really helpful for just imagining giggling alongside God at times. And then the last thing I would say is, and this has been a recurring theme probably again through all my Christian life, that I enjoy God and I'm helped most in my faith whenever I'm enjoying his sovereignty. And what I mean by that is whenever, especially again in the past year, where quite often at times I've just had no clue what the sort of next step is, and you get kind of comfortable with, okay, I'm not too sure where I'm going to be or what I'm going to be doing, but just appreciating that God is in control and smiling at the uncertainty. Or I remember even whenever I was at uni breaking my ankle, and I remember laughing in A&E a tiny bit just because I was like, oh, actually, like, God, you're in here somewhere. I'm not too sure where, but like it was clearly meant to be, or there's clearly goodness here that you're going to make out of this. And sure enough, again, his faithfulness turning up in that situation. So I think, I continue to be helped in enjoying God and centering him whenever I remember that he's in every part of it.
That's a challenge sometimes, isn't it? Of just saying, actually, God, rather than me just being overcome within the circumstances, where can I find you within them?
Yeah. And also not having the pressure of having to see him straight away, but just knowing that he is there.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah,
because sometimes we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves as well to be, okay, you are in here somewhere. Where are you?
Yeah.
But sometimes relaxing back in the, well, I know you're faithful.
Really helpful. I love those steps of just, first one, community. And it is humbling to think, I can't do this by myself.
No.
And we're not meant to.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. We're meant to follow Jesus together.
Yeah.
That's the point. And I think having people who get you, know you, support you, love you, encourage you, it's just essential. And I think it's brilliant that then in those moments where it's felt like, oh, wow, I kind of need some people, God's then built people around you, either people being faithful friends from back in Northern Ireland or new friends emerging, which I think is just really cool. Or an amazing fiance who happens to be an hour and 40 minutes down the road.
Oh, fantastic stuff.
Just really cool. And I also love this, that what you call being silly, but that the choosing joy of saying, actually, where in this can I be a joy bringer in this environment? What struck me is you saying, as I seek to lean into that, it becomes infectious within the people who are around me.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. And I think just all that you shared that in there, just that, and it's just resting. I guess that might be my word, is just resting in God's sovereignty. I don't know quite what's going on here, but I trust that God, you're in control. And I loved how you said, for me, is that, there's moments that, God, like, why in this moment? Where am I going to discover you? And you're going, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just, I don't know. But I'm just going to rest in the fact that you are sovereign and you are in control.
Yeah.
The next question I guess I want to ask is then, what are you discovering then at the moment about God as Father, Son, and Spirit?
My gut instinct is that there's not too much in this past year that I think I've discovered that is new about God. The reason being for that is I think he had brought me on such a journey, especially throughout uni, of really teaching me just to love his word and to really lean into a lot of the learning truths, and him revealing a lot of new good things throughout that. And probably I've maybe made that almost a bit of an idol, being more wise about God or having more theological understanding. But I've been really humbled this year in times of either whenever my schedule for a couple of months on end has literally not enabled me to have a proper quiet time where I've been able to functionally read the Bible through my blurry eyes, or else in times whenever I've felt really discouraged and just found it really hard to get a rhythm. He's more so cemented the depths of his character within those experiences. And in the midst of that also, it kind of humbled me a bit, as I've not learned too much more that I can use in a conversation to make me seem smart about God. But
sorry,
that's
a great way of putting it.
Which hasn't felt pleasant at times. But
I can imagine.
But then again, in terms of the depth, and the one point that I'd like to move to on this question is understanding his faithfulness in that.
It's good.
And also, I think probably one of my, not that you're asking, probably one of my almost kind of persistent, deeper fears is this thought of spiritually regressing, or just being a worse Christian than I was previously, which I'm not saying is theologically true. But again, I think it's Philippians, it talks about God continuing on that good work that he first started on us. And it's just in the midst of, encouraging times, in the midst of tiring times, in the midst of challenging and humbling times, he's been faithful in saying, okay, Dan, I'm still here. I'm not letting go. I'm holding fast. And there is purpose in this. And so it's more so been the depth of his faithfulness. I'd say I've learned very few new Bible verses in the last year or so, but the amount I've read over the ones that he cemented over the years prior to that has been ridiculous.
I think that's amazing, Dan. And I think just hearing you say it, you can see the journey to end that point of saying, what I've discovered is that God's been cementing, as you put it, the depth of his character And what he's continuously revealed is he is faithful.
Yeah.
Wow. Because the danger otherwise is it becomes, as you said, a thing of, look at what I've done.
Which I think is where my mind and heart sometimes wanders to, like everyone's.
Yeah, totally. And then circumstances come around, and you can't then rest on that.
Yeah.
And God says, it was never based on you anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm faithful.
Yeah.
I'm faithful. This is what it bases on. I'm the one who's going to complete the work I've started. I think, man, that is an amazing, profound thing that we have to get a hold of.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think, like, if you're listening on this and you've been just living with this thing of, oh yeah, this is down to me. I must prove something here. If I get to this point, then I'm going to be okay. No, the message here is, no. God's the one who's faithful. It's his work. He's enough. That's what he's inviting you to, that you rest in his work and discover the depth of it to take root in your very being. Oh man, which gets us to the last question, which you've already started to answer, which is like, this one's going to be chaotic. Yeah, how are you changing? Like, if we were to have met you 3, 6, 12 months ago, like, how would Dan today look different to Dan then?
I think it needs a really brief overview of what those 12 months have practically held. Prior to 12 months ago, was working in Northern Ireland as a newly qualified physio, and then sort of had the journey of, I got into the army, and then several months of slightly more intense training, followed by a month or so of less intense training sort of up around North Birmingham, and then finding out that I was going to be posted here to South Birmingham.
Wow.
And so I think within that there's been such a change of tempo as well. And I remember even in the advance of that, it feeling very much as if God was doing quite a bit of pre-season for me. And pre-season in terms of, getting a lot of life sort of in place and sort of, spending good time and rest with friends.
Yeah.
But then those couple of months of intensity of sort of our phase 1 training, that was very much the overwhelmed with tiredness and pressure kind of time, and the very much just relying on God being the strength day to day. At times we were out doing what I call extreme camping. So just in a forest for many days without very much sleep.
Wow.
And I just remember even within that time, like, it was quite stressful, but also such beautiful moments of silliness to break through and bring positivity in. And also some mornings where you'd just be like walking, soaking wet, very cold, and then the sun rises and everyone's got ear defense on, and so you can just be singing away to yourself.
Wow.
And it's some really beautiful moments in there. But during that time, being very tired and probably emotionally unavailable for everyone else in my life.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this segment of time after that was God very slowly sort of adjusting me into this next phase of time. And as well, just having a lot of time with family and with my girlfriend at the time. And I think struggling with a lot of that change, and that was the main focus of the patience. That's where that's kind of threaded in. So probably you did meet me at that point, because that's when I started coming along to Oasis, but very much just hungry for needing and wanting community and wanting structure and wanting encouragement, and also wanting to see where God was at, and being very frustrated that God had a lot more to sort out in my life than sorting out in the people and who I was wanting to evangelize around me. And so I think that's sort of been an ongoing theme up until this point of very much feeling like I'm here and I'm in the job I'm in, and I'm living with the people who I'm working with in the army.
Yeah.
Sort of wanting to be God's witness there. Not always seeing a lot of encouragement, sometimes seeing big encouragement, but being patient and waiting and understanding that I don't see the full picture just yet. And then for the last couple of months, Shona and I decided that we were probably going to get married a bit sooner than later and get engaged. So much there's just been a lot of joy and excitement, and even breakthrough in terms of enjoying work and being able to go away and journey with some people and actually feel really helpful in that secular space. And so, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but God's been consistent and patient throughout it. And so still in that space of patience, I think, and in waiting and in trying to have discipline to have intimacy with God, and pleasantly smiling at the future with a bunch of logistics that I've got no clue about, but kind of excited because that means God's in there somewhere and he's going to work in there somewhere.
I think it's a beautiful summary, Dan. I really do. I think it shows both of like what you've learned is just the consistency of just God through it all. That's what I hear through what you've said. And then also that God's more interested in working in you than just simply through you.
Which is so frustrating sometimes.
It is.
It's so demoralizing. It's and yet like it's
life-giving.
Yeah, it's life-giving, like, and he's sanctifying us, and he won't stop. Totally. But also it hurts so often.
Yeah. It's the work in progress sticker is like humbling. You're like, still work to do with me.
Under construction.
Under construction. That's exactly it. It's under construction. Yeah, I wonder whether that speaks to others more than we realise. I wonder if we're in a world of people who just want to know, I've not got it sorted either. Yeah, I need someone to come restore me. I wonder what may happen as God has been doing stuff in you, what God has quietly been doing through you. I think is going to be amazing. But I think, so good.
Here's praying.
Dan, man, this has been good. I'm going to be disciplined because as part of me is like, we can keep going. We're not going to keep going.
I've not looked at my watch.
I don't know. But I think a deep sense of joy in just hearing your story, of being let in to just know something of your journey over the last kind of 18, 24 months is just beautiful. It really is. Of just this profound sense of, I've kind of known something of God. I got this head knowledge that was growing my heart knowledge, and then God's come and just like gone, no, let's go deeper in a way that you may not have expected. It's just amazing. It's done my heart good. So I'm, as always at this point, filled with joy. Really am. I just love it. In terms of reflection, I think for me, I'm going to pick up on something you said in respect to community. We do this together, not alone. And rather than me consider who those people are, I kind of know who some of these people are. I'm going to drop them a text or a WhatsApp over the next week just to say, like, hey, I really appreciate being in community with you, of running and walking and crawling and sitting after Jesus with you. That's what I'm going to do. How about you, my listening friends? What are you going to be considering over this coming week out of all the joy that Dan has brought us in what he shared? Lastly, I just want to pray for each and every one of us. And I pray that we would know more of the wonder of living centered on Jesus this coming week. Amen.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Living Centered podcast. New episodes are released every Monday, and if you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe on your chosen podcast provider to receive them direct each week. Living Centered is produced by the team at Oasis Church in Birmingham, UK, and you can find out more and get in touch with the team via theoasischurch.com.